once again, everyone, to the Yalak Emmet channel on Twitter, YouTube, Patreon. This is March 3rd, 2022. This lesson is titled, Christ is Not the Branch. Now, we've heard lots of teachings on Christ being that branch that was prophesied of in the scriptures all the years when we were in Christianity, and we still hear it as some of us still continue to teach and believe in Christ. This will give a little bit more information that I found. I'm going to mention some things here, point out some things from this book I've been reading. This book titled The Witness of the Stars. And I'm starting from about page 29 to about page 35. I'm not going to just like read it word for word going through. I'm just going to flip through the pages and point out a couple of things here and there. And just give the basic gist of what they're saying, give an idea, and then you can go and read the book if you want to get a better idea of what the book is saying. Again, the book, The Witness of the Stars, has some very strong information that we can use to size up the Bible a little bit. You know, many people have said that the Bible is like a smorgasbord of like a collection of different writings from ancient times, from thousands of years ago. And this book helps to show that as well. Now, the chapter here, chapter 1, titled the Redeemer, His First Coming, the Sufferings of Christ, titled The Sign Virgo, the Promised Seed of the Woman. And we know the Bible speaks of a certain woman and the child and the son, the man-child that should come and so on. You hear that kind of stuff from Genesis all the way to the book of Revelations. Now, the book here is saying in this chapter that it's talking about the person of the coming one, the one that people expect. You know, they call him the Messiah in Christian circles that we are used to, and Hebrew Israelite teaching and so on. We hear a lot about the Messiah. It talks about the issues and troubles of the promised nation or the promised seed called Israel in the Bible. And this promised one, he is spoken of as coming at a certain time to bring the deliverance and salvation and the blessing of the Most High to this nation of Israel. It's interesting that it begins to mention Virgo, and Virgo, or the Virgin. We were taught all along to stay away from astrology, and that stuff is scary, it's demonic and so on. Now, I'm not pushing any of that stuff, and I don't get up every day reading or looking to my horoscope, which is their horoscope for me, because I don't know if it's my horoscope. I don't look into that stuff. I'm simply reading this book and said, hey, this is talking about the promised one, the Messiah, in the Bible, so I thought I would do a lesson. But it talks here about Virgo, or the Virgin, and it says this is the commencement of all prophecy, and it begins in Genesis chapter 3, verse 15. Virgo, or the Virgin, is linked to Genesis chapter 3, verse 15, but keep in mind, as I said before, the Bible, by the experts, have long been said to be put together by taking different writings from different times and putting them all together. So the prophecy in Genesis 3:15 has spoken to the serpent, saying, I will put enmity between thee and the woman, and between thy seed and her seed. It shall bruise thy head, and thou shalt bruise his heel. And it is saying that this is a prophetic telling which is going to bring about the the salvation, right, of the nation of Israel. This kind of prophetic announcement, it lies at the root of many different ancient myths and spiritual traditions. But they're saying here that it actually is a perversion and corruption of what people knew in primitive times. So that lets you think that someone, by putting it in the Bible like that in Genesis 3:15, the seed of the woman shall bruise, it's giving it to you in a corrupted kind of way, which still ports over something of what was taught and known back then. It's giving it to you in a corrupted kind of way, which still ports over something of what was taught and known back then, or at least believed or held by the people in ancient times, but brings it over in a way that has some deception or confusion to it, is what the author is saying. Now, Virgo, or the Virgin, is shown to the world as a woman with a branch in her hand, and some ears of corn in her left hand. Virgo, or the Virgin, is shown to the world as a woman with a branch in her hand, and some ears of corn in her left hand. And this is pointing to the coming one, the Messiah, or the Jesus Christ, as we have so long been taught. So you got the Virgo, the woman, with ears of corn, with a branch in her right hand, and ears of corn in the left hand. And they would use, when you look at these pictures, it's often shown with points of stars in the sky linked together. You run that search, you eventually come upon that kind of picture. So you got the woman in the sky, branch in her right hand, ears of corn in her left hand, and that's speaking of the coming one, or the Savior, or the Messiah. The name of this sign in the Hebrew, the sign for Virgo in the Hebrew, is Bethula, which means a virgin, and in the Arabic it means a branch. So this would be the same branch that they're saying is Christ. These two words, virgin and branch, are connected to the Latin word Virgo, which means a virgin. And you can find it in Isaiah 11:1, meaning a branch as well, or speaking of an ear of corn in the Arabic. Look at what Isaiah chapter 11 and verse 1 says. And we know this verse so well, and we never thought, most of us, about Virgo and some sign in the sky, because we're taught to ignore the signs in the sky and so on, right? Often because they have this link to astrology, so that's how they get us to ignore certain things and to not dig further, but to stay only on the pages of the Bible. But Isaiah 11:1, it says, "And there shall come forth a rod out of the stem of Jesse, and a branch shall grow out of his roots." Okay, so Netzer from H5342 in the Strongs, for branch, it's speaking of a sprout, shoot, or branch. We don't normally think of this in Isaiah 11:1, when it says a branch, as having anything to do with some ancient drawing in the sky or mapping of stars, with a picture or image of a woman holding in her right hand a branch and her left hand an ear of corn. When we read something like Isaiah 11:1, "Come forth a rod out of the stem of Jesse, a branch shall grow out of his roots," we just start thinking of different Bible characters. Is this David or this other person or whatever? That's how we think, and we think in terms of salvation from Yahweh and the Messiah and so on. So it seems to our thinking immediately connects to more modern kind of thinking that links to words like branch and King David and so on. Not saying that that is wrong, because you can still piece things together like that, but most of us don't run back to some mapping of stars in the sky and branch and ear of corn. It doesn't, because that would take us way too far back in time when people taught and had some ancient prophecy, something that they were looking forward to before a Bible was written, or before the Torah that we have in its present form was written. So you see how far this goes back? So it makes one wonder, how much time have we really been on earth? Because some of these things seem to go back way far beyond just the time that we're given up in the Bible, usually this famous 6,000 years. So anyway, Virgo, or the woman, is somehow pointing to the coming one, or the Messiah, with the branch and the corn, ears of corn in her hand, her left hand. So you see all the stuff that you can attach to the image of Virgo, or this woman. But in Genesis 3:15, the woman is only, Genesis 3:15 only presents the image of a woman. So it seems to leave out some extra stuff that would help you to dig a little bit more and find out some more. So it's only as a woman in Genesis 3:15, the seed of the woman will bruise, right? But in other prophecies to come later on, her nationality, which it doesn't speak of there in Genesis 3:15, but as you go on, her nationality is later showing up as being of Israel, the seed of Abraham, the line of David, and so on. And further, that she is to be a virgin. And further, that she is to be a virgin. Then you get later on the Bible speaking of, behold, the virgin shall conceive her son, Matthew 1:23, and so on, and they try to tie that to Isaiah 7:14. So it's building up in a way that keeps it only biblical. So you don't have much room, if you're not doing any extra reading, to connect it to any other image, to any other prophecy, to any other ideas that people had in the past, or what we might even call ancient prophecies, something that they were looking forward to from way long ago. So it seems to connect to a virgin conceiving the son, and you're going to call his name Emmanuel, and so on. But another thought is connected with his actual second coming and getting over the sufferings that have gone on, and sufferings he will deal with, and the sufferings of Jacob's trouble, as it's famously called, the troubles of Israel and captivity and so on. And looking forward to this Messiah coming in glory and judgment in Isaiah 9, verse 6 and 7, for example. Let me see what that is saying here. For unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given, and the government shall be upon his shoulder, and his name shall be called Wonderful Counselor, the Mighty God, the Everlasting Father, the Prince of Peace. Of the increase of his government and peace there shall be no end, upon the throne of David and upon his kingdom, to order it and to establish it with judgment and with justice from henceforth, even forever. The zeal of the Lord of hosts will perform this. They're pointing out here that it's hard to separate the Virgin, or Virgo, the stars in the sky. And again, keep in mind that then the stars would be telling something about time and prophecy and the future. But it's kind of hard to separate the Virgin from her seed in the prophecy. And so you get the sign Virgo, where it's pointing towards the woman, right? And also giving an indication of a son that should come, a child that should come. Then he gets into some other technical stuff, which you can read that, again, The Witness of the Stars, if you want to find out some more details about that. I'm trying to get to the branch, which is what I'm focusing on. But I'm going through this to point out what the author is talking about, to show you that somehow this branch that ended up in the scriptures is pointing to something else from a long time ago that people had some more information about, with the ears of corn and the branch, and something written in the stars, might I say, in the skies, as a woman. And see, they might give you 7 candlesticks or some other kind of figure to deal with in the Bible, but you don't normally get a drawing of a woman in the sky linked by points in stars. They don't normally think like that. They make that seem like that's something outside of the Bible, stay away from astrology and so on, to make sure you don't have much connection with certain things that only seem extra biblical, but it ties in with the Bible. It's just coming across in a way in the Bible to make it a little bit more difficult for us to understand today. So he's saying here, the brightest star in Virgo has an actual ancient name that has come down to us in all the star maps. So look it up as well, in which the Hebrew word Semek is preserved. And in Arabic it is called Al-Zimak, which means simply the branch. So you see that? You're getting now, Virgo is somehow connected to the branch that you're reading off, and a branch will come out of Jesse, right? Someone will be raised up in the end times. So it's that Alzemak, or the Semek from the Hebrew, dealing with Virgo, the brightest star, is dealing with the branch. It means the branch. The star is in the ear of corn, which she is holding, the woman in the sky with the stars. She is holding the ear of corn in her left hand. And that star has a modern Latin name, which seems to have taken over the ancient name. It's called Spica, or Spica, however it's pronounced. And it also means an ear of corn. And he's saying here that it hides a lot of information that was revealed by the other name, the older name, Al-Zimak, from the Arabic. Now, when you deal with branch, he's pointing out here that there are a number of words translated branch in the Hebrew. He's saying here there are 20 Hebrew words for branch, but only one of them, the word semek, is used exclusively of the Messiah, and this word only occurs 4 times, like in the book of Jeremiah, like Jeremiah 23:5. I'm going to read that in a moment. So this word semek, for branch, he's saying it's dealing with the actual Messiah that's being prophesied, spoken of, and that is linked to that ancient drawing and the mapping of stars in the sky for Virgo, the brightest star, dealing with the woman who's holding a branch in the right hand and ears of corn in the left hand, in her left hand. But you don't get that talk throughout the prophecies in the prophets like that, because the prophets seem to leave out some of this stuff. Why would the prophets seem to leave out so many stuff? This is actually very important, because from getting an idea now of more of this information, I am now able to put together this new lesson here, that Christ is not the branch. So you see how knowing more stuff gets you to see more things about the Bible or the Torah that you read. But stick with me. Look at Jeremiah 23, verse 5. Behold, the days come, saith the Lord, that I will raise unto David a righteous branch, which basically means a son. So the branch is a son. And the king shall reign and prosper. The account of his coming as king is written in the gospel according to Matthew, where Jehovah says to Israel, behold thy king, like in Zechariah 9, verse 9, and they go on to link it to Matthew chapter 21, verse 9. Look at now Zechariah 3, verse 8. Behold, I will bring forth my servant, the branch. Or basically, my servant, the son, or as we have been taught, the Messiah, being Jesus Christ, but it's not actually Jesus Christ. So the branch is not Jesus Christ, and the son is not Jesus Christ. Or basically, my servant, the son, or as we have been taught, the Messiah, being Jesus Christ, but it's not actually Jesus Christ. So the branch is not Jesus Christ, and the son is not Jesus Christ. This 2,000-year-old Christ, it's not him that the branch is speaking of. Even though the New Testament makes us think like that. Zechariah 6, verse 12. Thus speaketh the Lord of hosts, saying, behold, the man whose name is the branch. Isaiah 4:2, in that day shall the branch of Jehovah be beautiful and glorious. So now, if you remember, Semek for branch, speaking of Virgo, the brightest star, look at it now. It could say here, according to Isaiah 4:2, in that day shall the brightest star of Jehovah, so the star of Jehovah, the brightest star or the brightest light of Jehovah be beautiful and glorious. Or if we put for Semek branch, if we put sun instead of Virgo, in that day shall the son of Jehovah be beautiful and glorious. So you see how the ones who gave us this modern Bible, this modern Torah, put it in a way where if you insert sun in place of Semek or branch, then you can see how people can be deceived with a teaching that says that son must be Jesus Christ, because of course Jesus is called the Son of God. But it's a trick. When you understand some more, and as you go through this book, if you choose to read it, linked to more ancient thoughts, you would see more that the branch is linked to Virgo, is linked to more ancient thoughts about all this stuff. So it really doesn't have anything to do with Jesus Christ, even though the author here is actually pointing to Jesus Christ because he mentions a lot of New Testament stuff. But I'm going to show here that it is not Jesus Christ. And I remember, I don't know, maybe 2-3 years ago, I already did a lesson in my New Testament is Fake series. I don't remember what it's called, the lesson, but it's still online and it deals with Isaiah 53. I think it was titled something like Isaiah 53 Messiah, something like that. But yes, but there was one I called something about Isaiah 53, and I showed that Isaiah 53 cannot possibly be the Messiah. And when it says he was whipped and bruised and so on, I showed how that was Africa, the blacks who were whipped and bruised and punished and taken advantage of in slavery. We were bruised and destroyed. And our nation, in a sense, died with all the slavery and the colonization and so on that happened over in Africa and over in the Western world and all over the earth and so on. Right? It's Africa, it's the blacks that was whipped and bruised. So this is not about no son, Jesus Christ, that came from heaven. And so when Jesus resurrected, it's more Africa or the blacks who will be the ones to resurrect. And so Africa will be the nation that actually comes back from the dead. The blacks will be the ones who will resurrect or come back from the dead. So the New Testament is not being read and taught and understood properly. Africa is the one who will come back as a nation. And through Africa, other blacks are going to be able to rise up and get back on their feet. That's how this thing really goes. So the branch is there really talking about not the Son of God coming from heaven, but the Son that will come out of Africa. The king that will end up standing up in the end. And even when the world is destroyed and it will be a dark day and there's darkness over the land or over the world, it's Africa that they're going to turn to for food to keep on living and sustenance, right? Because the blessing of the Most High will be upon that land and its people. And I've called it Isra Africa at other times in my other lessons. So when it says here in Isaiah 4 and verse 2, in that day shall the branch, bright star Virgo or son of Jehovah, be beautiful and glorious, then he goes on to tell here that this branch is actually foretold by the star Al-Zimak in the ear of corn that was in the left hand of Virgo, the woman drawn from the points of stars in the sky. This is what the prophet Isaiah is actually saying when you have more information. And I bet you as I continue reading more of this stuff from different authors as well, that I'm going to find more clarity about these things. Now, some of these words I can't pronounce properly, right? Because they mention some Greek words saying about the stars named in Greek, and then over time they would have changed them from whatever language they were in originally. Eventually they got spoken of with Greek names and Arabic names, now as he's mentioning here and so on. So, and Latin as well. But one star, this star here now, dealing with the branch, is the star Al-Zimak in the ear of corn. And the star, because I guess he listed different stars. I didn't read all that part, but if you're interested in the book, The Witness of the Stars, you can look it up. It's called Zavi Jave, which means the gloriously beautiful. As Isaiah said in Isaiah 4:2, the branch of Jehovah will be beautiful and glorious. So he's saying it's called Zavi Jave, which means the gloriously beautiful, as in Isaiah 4:2. And then another star is speaking of the arm bearing the branch, and is called Al Moridin, which means the one who will come down, as in Psalm 72, verse 8. Let's read that one quickly. Psalm 72, verse 8. He shall have dominion also from sea to sea, and from the river unto the ends of the earth. And see, in verse 7 before that, it was saying, in his days shall the righteous flourish. No, let's read 6 and 7. He shall come down like rain upon the mown grass, as showers that water the earth. In his days shall the righteous flourish, and abundance of peace, so long as the moon endureth. So, this is the star that's coming down, that will be righteous and beautiful and glorious, and he shall have dominion. And he shall have dominion. He's saying, he mentions even a Chaldee word here that I won't bother try to pronounce that, but it means son or branch who cometh. And you see, when you deal with the idea of branch, we're not shooting out and growing out of like the plant or the tree. So you see, it's something that's growing, and we know the Bible speaks of a garden, and it starts out in Genesis talking about a garden, and the different trees and nations are called trees. And so if the tree is growing up, the tree which is Israel, and a branch is going to shoot out of it. So you see now, I guess the woman with the stars there, the stars are foretelling something that should happen in the whole experience on earth, of us living here on earth. The stars is telling that there's a divine pronunciation or a divine prophetic telling of a branch that will come out of the nation of the earth that is now known in the Bible as Israel, and he shall have dominion. So the branch coming out is just keeping in line with nations being called trees. And so that's how the Bible talks. It talks in terms of images. But by showing the woman connected to the stars, is letting you know that this is a divine plan, something that has been planned out and promised and worked out already from ancient times. Let's look at Jeremiah 23:5. Okay, I read that already, but basically it's saying, the days come that I will raise unto David a righteous branch, and the king shall reign, and so on, execute judgment in the earth. Now let's run over to Zechariah chapter 6 and verse 12. And speak unto him, saying, Thus speaketh the Lord of hosts, saying, Behold the man whose name is the branch, and he shall grow up out of his place, and he shall build the temple of the Lord. Again, they use stuff like this to talk about it's Christ that's going to come and so on. But consider, however, that all kings of Israel in the Bible were born of a woman, and they never came out of heaven. Now, when you're dealing with branch, like I just said before, it's coming out of like the tree. If the tree is the nation of Israel, then the branch is coming out of the tree, which is the nation of Israel, who are people who live on the earth. They're humans just like you and I. The branch is going to come out of humanity, not out of heaven. The branch is coming out of, or the king is coming out of, or the son is coming out of humans who live on earth, who give birth, male and female giving birth. That's where the king is coming out of. And that's what we find in very clear example in scripture of the kings of Israel coming out of men and women of human flesh. The branch is coming out of human flesh, not out of heaven, coming down like where God has to prepare some special body for Jesus, like Paul is saying in probably Hebrews 10:4 or 5, somewhere there, that he prepared a special body, which is taken from Old Testament anyway. So the New Testament then, it does a sort of unkosher act, might I say, by birthing a king Messiah in a way that hints at Yahweh being the father. And I know some of you are going to say, well, Joseph was his actual father and the spirit impregnating Mary was just Catholic stuff, Vatican stuff, and whatever. But that is still one widely held view. And the way that you still size up the New Testament is that Jesus is as Messiah or as the branch. While you still say Joseph was the father, it is still showing Jesus, the branch Messiah, to be extraordinarily divine, such that Joseph could not have really produced him. So when you want to say, oh, the Spirit impregnated Mary, we don't believe in that. The New Testament goes on to show that this man Jesus is so different that he is not like other men. But the king who will raise up will be like other men. He's going to, why? Because he comes out of the stock of Israel. He comes out of the root of Jesse. He comes out of the root of human flesh. There's not no God impregnating a woman in Israel to bring about this king that will come later on. He comes out of the human flesh of Israelite human man and woman flesh on the earth. No special divinity is creating him than created the rest of us, and then created the people from Genesis who started off population on earth. So the New Testament is still trying to show that Yahweh is the real Father. That's why Jesus and the New Testament says at certain points things that make you say that he came down from heaven. You want to push that Joseph is his actual father, but he's telling you all throughout, and the rest of the apostles there, that he came down from heaven. But the actual branch comes out of a tree, which is a nation of people who were not living in heaven. And we come through a woman's womb. So this Justus Brutus Christus is not the actual branch that is being spoken of in the prophecies in the Torah. The branch is actually a king or ruler of Africa who will reign according to the righteousness of David. That's why it keeps linking him to David, David, David so much. He's going to rule according to the righteousness of David. Now, look at this word branch from this etymology dictionary here. It says branch, the woody part of a tree arising from the trunk and usually dividing, again giving the idea of something physical and natural, something that is normal to earth, not otherworldly, coming out of heaven. So, but it arises, the branch is something that arises, part of the tree that arises from the trunk or a larger branch of a tree, like the larger branch of the nation of Israel, which I'm saying is Israfrica. It comes out of that branch, that nation. And here, to run back to Zechariah 6 verse 12, where it says, behold the man whose name is the branch, from H6780 in the Strongs, Samak, which I covered already, being the branch, from the Virgo, linked to the Virgo, and she had the branch in the right hand. It says branch, Samek, from the Hebrew, a sprout, a growth, a branch. Now, does God grow? So if he had a son, Jesus, that came out of heaven, and like Paul said, he had to prepare a special body, then he came out of God. Then he came out of God. So Jesus can't grow, even though the New Testament is going to tell you grow in stature or whatever. God don't have anything growing in him. It's us who grow. It's people who grow. So we each one of us is linked to the growth of this tree, and branches come out. But this special branch is going to come out of the tree, the people. And so this samek, or the branch, is a sprout, a growth, a branch. So it's coming out of. And it says here, a sprout, a shoot of Messiah from the Davidic tree. From the Davidic tree. What is the Davidic tree? The house of Israel, which I call Isra Africa or Israfrica, to give a connection there between Israel and Africa. So the branch then is a shoot which is dealing with the Messiah coming out of the Davidic tree. Basically, coming out of the nation. That's the Davidic tree. So it's growing out of that tree. So behold the man whose name is the branch is like saying, behold the man whose name is he who grows out of the Davidic tree. Grows out of the nation. So not no special Apostle Paul in Hebrews 10 growing out of or coming out of heaven. No, it's something, it's a tree that's already growing and existing on the earth with its roots in the earthly domain. He's not coming out of no spiritual domain, out of spiritual heaven, out of God in heaven. He wasn't living in heaven and then made occasional appearances on earth in the Old Testament to like Abraham and others and Daniel in the lion's den and the fiery furnace and whatever. This isn't the kind of thing. That's New Testament deception. This has earthly roots from a tree that's growing in the earth, that's situated in the earth, linked to the earth, that has its identity in a way that is connected with roots that grow in the earth. That's why land is so important in the Bible. Because the people themselves are of the earth. That's why the Bible says he formed man of the dust of the ground. Because this man comes out of the ground. He doesn't come out of heaven. The branch is of the earth. That's why it calls it branch Otherwise, it might have, because it's growing from a tree, otherwise, it might have spoken throughout the Bible instead of branch, spoken something of an angelic nature or of a spirit or of divinity, because he's coming out of God, being Christ, the first spirit, as they say, created before everything else. It would have spoken of some kind of divinity or spirit or angel all throughout. Instead, all throughout is speaking of branch, 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 branch. It's letting you know the Messiah is coming out of a tree that is already living on earth and has been on earth for a long time. And the branch is coming out of a tree, which is a nation whose people have been watching the skies for a long time and looking at the stars and looking at the woman and waiting for the promise that's spoken of with the branch of Virgo in the right hand and the ears of corn that will feed the people, and the branch, the corn will grow out when the time really comes. It's promise, it's prophecy, known from ancient times before this Torah was written and given to us. So Christ is not the branch. The branch is a king or ruler of Africa, especially when you look at all kinds of wars going on in earth and whatever other wars they say is going to come, and Gog and Magog and Armageddon and all the kind of stuff that they try to frighten us with, and so on, and the MOTB and every other ungodly, unrighteous thing that they talk about. And when these people are destroying themselves, and the world is in darkness and there's no hope left for people, is this king who's going to rise up with the spirit of him, with the spirit on him, that's going to be a bright, shining light, that's going to give salvation from the Most High to his people, and then the world is going to have to settle down and quiet down with their wars because of this king that will rise. The so-called underdog is going to rise up to the top because that which was shall be. So the little Africa you see, they're going to rise up. That means the king is going to come out of East Africa. That's the branch that we're talking about right here in this lesson. That's why in some scripture, I don't remember where it is now, but I think it's in Isaiah somewhere, that the kings who basically, it's interpreted or put in my words as meaning the fiery nature and presentation of the kings of Africa, because they will be made an hearth of fire, like it says in Isaiah. Let me see if I can find it here quickly. If not, I'll just move on. Yeah, Zechariah 12:6. In that day, and you know, Zechariah speaks a lot about end time stuff and deliverance of our people and so on. In that day will I make the governors of Judah like an hearth of fire among the wood, and like a torch of fire in a sheath, and they shall devour all the people round about, meaning the other nations round about, on the right hand and on the left, and Jerusalem shall be inhabited again in her own place, even in Jerusalem. And you all know that Jerusalem was long known to be a part of Africa. It's modern times they changed that. So the governors of Judah basically will be governors or leaders or rulers of Africa, here being called by this tribe or kingdom named Judah. They will be like an hearth of fire, bright, hot, and burning. And it's going to come when the branch is raised up out of the tree that has been spoken of here in this lesson so far, from the people who have roots in the earth from so long ago, before some New Testament saviors coming out of heaven. No, the tree is of the earth. It's the people of the Most High. And so the ruler of Africa, that's the branch, who will reign according to the righteousness of David. That's why they keep saying of David, of David, of David. And David is coming back. Why? Because David was shown as this righteous man who loved the Lord in the scriptures. His heart was toward the Lord. Yeah, he had certain issues in there, but he would still repent, and his heart was really toward the Most High. And he looked out for his people, for his nation. So it's saying this kind of ruler is going to rise up again out of the house of David that is going to be just like David, according to the spirit of David, and so on. And will love the Lord, and he will be trusted by his people, as they will see him in a right, they will see in him a right and good heart before the Lord, and toward having the same heart and mind toward his people. If Christ is the branch, where does it say the branch will appear multiple times? Because that ruler, that king that will rise up in Africa, which will be the branch, is not coming many, many, many times. We are still looking for him to appear. To appear one time, and that one time is going to bring such a big difference on the earth. And his presence is coming, will quiet down these heathen nations with all their wars and so on, and their weapons and so on. He's just going to come one time, and that's going to do it, because the Spirit of the Lord is going to be upon him. One time is this branch spoken of as coming in these prophecies, these very strong prophecies all throughout the Torah. So the New Testament is deceiving us, because the new teachings, or the New Testament teachings, it's letting us know that Christ appeared many times. So if Christ is a branch, then he came so many times in the Torah or the Old Testament, and then he came in the time of the New Testament and still didn't get anything done. But the branch, when it shows up, is showing us through the different prophecies of Jeremiah, Isaiah, Zechariah, and others, that when this branch shows up, it is game over for the wicked, and it is salvation and righteousness and blessing and restoration for the people who are part of that tree, the nation of the Most High. That branch is going to show up one time and get things done and quiet down the earth. But Christ is showing up many times. But like I said, if Christ is a branch, where does it say that the branch will appear multiple times like Christ did? Where does it say that? Only once will the branch come and will give life in his one coming. He will be a great ruler. And he will not judge, the Bible says, according to flimsy things, like by the sight of his eyes, and differentiating people by how they look, and by his own personal feelings and so on. He's going to judge by the Spirit. So there will be righteousness and fairness and justice on the earth coming out of this branch, this ruler that has been so long prophesied. The branch also will not show up and then die like Christ did without getting anything done. Because who did he save with his death? But the branch will not show up and then die, and then have to return a second or third time, like they talk about the second and the third coming. He's coming again. The second coming, they said, to rapture and snatch off his people, and then he's coming back a third time with 1,000 saints or 10,000, whatever they say, to fight and conquer and whatever. And that's even wrong, because the second and third coming, shouldn't it be like the 7th or 8th or 9th or 10th coming or something? Because he came already multiple times in the Old Testament, they said. They even teach us that he came and walked out the children of Israel and saved them out of Egypt. That's what they teach. So how many times is this branch going to come on the earth? And still his people are suffering. So the branch is not going to show up and then die like happened to Christ on Calvary. The branch does not experience death at the hands of the wicked. The branch does not experience death. The branch does not wither. The New Testament is fake. Yalak Emmett Channel, Twitter, YouTube, Patreon. Thank you for listening.